Welcome back, America. We're here with former Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy, you're able now to sit back and watch what's taking place in Congress, not just the House, but all of Congress. And you can see the glide path is basically where the Democrats want it right now. We're going to have to really show up in big numbers and change the electoral map, increase the numbers in the House, win the Senate, and elect Donald Trump to really have any hope of saving this country, aren't we? I mean, the Democrats are not interested in compromise. They're interested in monopoly power.
My big fear is if people sit back. If they sit back, think about how much further the Democrats would go. Republicans have the House, they're able to stop a lot. But I will tell you this, for everybody sitting at home, this is a unique opportunity. If the election was held today, President Trump would win, simply on the merits that people can measure what we've been able to accomplish, but really on the port card of Joe Biden itself. War around the world, a border that's wide open, fentanyl killing Americans. We had 5 embassies have to evacuate. The decisions he has made has harmed us for decades. The way he got out of Afghanistan, attacking our own allies, walking back our support for Israel, which we have to, as Americans, stay firm with the only democracy, with our truest of friends in Israel. But what you find, too, is I believe the Republicans can pick up the Senate, one of the best maps they have. But even in the House, we have an opportunity to gain seats. It's easier to win seats in this election than it was in the last 2 when we won. And if you look at voter registration, Republican numbers are up in Pennsylvania, they're up in Florida, they're up in a number of these swing states. So if we do our jobs and bring more people than just Republicans, invite everybody that wants to have a secure border. We watched earlier this week, inflation is back based upon Democratic policies. We've watched crime continue to rise in our streets. We know America can be better. We know America is too big and too great to settle for something so small as these Democratic policies.
Do you think, Kevin McCarthy, that the obvious effort by Joe Biden to paint Trump as a dictator, as a threat to our society, anti-democratic, which of course is him projecting onto Trump, that's Joe Biden, with help from the media and massive amounts of paid advertisements, you think that's going to work with enough people that it's going to throw the election the wrong way?
I hope it doesn't work. Now, remember, in the last election, we have electoral college. You all are always the best with laying out what a republic and a constitution means. Joe Biden won that election by 48,918 votes out of the entire nation. So every vote matters. But we've watched what the Democrats used last time. Remember when they got 51 people in the Intel Committee to lie to all Americans, former CIA director, individuals, to tell you not to post and use the social media of a New York Post article inside a newspaper? We watched him lie, and again, I think the American people have woken up. We've watched what the Democratic policies have done to this nation. We cannot allow that to happen. I trust the American public much more. But the one thing I believe, just as Reagan told us, we trust but we verify. We have to come out and vote and make sure America has the right direction.
We have this horrendous open border, and it's open for a reason. And it's not just because Joe Biden likes foreigners. Under the census, they count the number of people who are in the country, not the number of citizens. And my thinking is that, among other things, they want to load up these congressional districts as with many of these people as possible, particularly in the metropolitan areas, so they can get more seats in the next census. Don't you think that's part of Biden's calculation?
I don't think it's just Biden himself. I've heard Democrats literally say it on the floor of the House, smile and laugh at me when they say that to us. But you have to understand, what does it mean when your border's wide open? And why did this take place? It started January 20th. The day Joe Biden came in, they stopped finishing the wall, the small portions that were left undone. Then the next thing they did by making this wide open border, how difficult is it to get on a terrorist watch list? Very difficult. Do you realize last February, we caught more people on the terrorist watch list in 1 month than the entire last 4 years under President Trump? Do you know how many Chinese dissidents that we have actually caught? Those that we have not have gotten through. Just this year, 22,000. People are coming from 160 different countries. They're not just walking up from Latin America. And who's coming across? We caught people on the terrorist watch list from Yemen coming into California, not on the same day. Who are they talking to? What do they have planned? Have we forgotten what happened on 9/11? What a few individuals that want to do damage to this country? And we've watched the weakness of this president building up to Iran, helping them fund. We actually have, and Mark, this is the real policy discussion you have to have. There is a law that sets Iran not able to sell their oil. Biden allows it. They were only producing 400,000 barrels a day. Now it's 3 million. They are making billions of dollars with Biden in, and they're using it against America, and they're funding terrorism around the world.
It's just absolutely horrendous. And this whole immigration issue, you could see what happened, frankly, in Dearborn, Michigan. Barack Obama, during the last years of his presidency, opened the floodgates for people, quite frankly, from the Middle East. And he did it intentionally. People can Google it. They can look it up themselves. People need to be vetted. They need to show allegiance to the United States. They need to be willing to assimilate into our culture, into our country. That's the whole point of diversity within the United States. We cannot have people coming here who bring their hate, who bring their ideology, and have no intention of showing allegiance to this country, but are here to destroy it. Obviously not everybody, but too many.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.